Welcome to American Nomad News. Darren Marchant, your host. A man who's gonna make anything of himself will seek a certain kind of woman. And he'll value that woman over any other aspect of life. A man who wants that kind of woman cannot afford to take a job working for anybody else. Until he finds that woman that will take him with nothing. Because a woman that can't tell the difference between a man and his money, a man and his employment, isn't a woman worth having. Because she'll leave you as soon as the market turns. She'll leave you and she'll take up with the man for his wallet. A woman who sees a stand-up man is the right thing. He's polite. He's patient. He's capable of hard work. Motivated. More than anything else, able to stand under the harshest of circumstances. That woman won't leave her man when the market turns. Because the market turns. Go ask the highly educated. Many of them were wealthy. People who walked from Syria to Germany. One of those gentlemen who took that journey, if I remember correctly, was an astronaut. Who refused to bomb his own people as a fighter pilot when he was ordered to by the Syrian government. So he left. And if I remember correctly, and maybe I'm wrong, but if I remember the story correctly, then he's in Germany now. So Germany gained somebody who was of such quality that they qualified as an astronaut. That's not an easy task. That's a stand-up guy. But there was a day after being an astronaut when he didn't have a job or any place to go except Germany, along a long walk. He had the faith to pull that off. I salute the man. And the woman that wants that kind of man, that's the kind of woman I want. I don't want the kind of woman who's going to turn her back on me, run away and say she didn't do it. See me coming at her and turn tail. Because tough times come and tough times go. Wealth comes and wealth goes. That's one of the lessons of life. Family's forever. That's the kind of woman I'm looking for. Darren Marchant, American Nomad News, signing off. Computer programmers on one side, heavy equipment operators on the other side of our society. our society has been dramatically affected by the information age. And even before that, technology has had a dramatic effect on our demographics, the way we look at families. The tractor, when it was introduced, dramatically expanded the capacity of a given farm to handle more and more acreage with fewer people. This changed the family dynamic, reducing the number of farms needed and the number of people on those farms. And those people headed for the cities when their farms failed. And now, with the information age, a tremendous amount of social influence in the form of digital money. And why do I say digital money? It's not backed up by the gold standard. It's monopoly money and video game points. If you've got cash in your hand, it's monopoly money. And if you've got a credit card, it's video game points. And the computer society has gamed the system to bring those video game points onto their credit ledger. And it's not entirely illegitimate. I'm able to record this and transmit it to the world, even though not very many people see this, because of the work that chip manufacturers, computer manufacturers, guys like Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, and whole armies of people who sit down at desks and punch buttons. And we have a significant amount of benefit from this. So it's not proper to think of that as theft or anything like that, except in certain cases. However, that has created a divide in our country. It's kind of an interesting one, actually, that's been around for a long time, but it's been exaggerated. When I first started hanging out with the Saudis, God bless them, they're wonderful people, I explained to them as they were asking me to help them with their English tests and stuff, they wanted to learn English in order to get into University of Washington and the other colleges, which is totally legit. That's awesome. And I told them one of the more important words to understand in the English language, in the Ameriki language, is dude. Why dude? In the city, dude means brother, means friend. But in the rural communities, dude means somebody who can't handle horses, is green, inexperienced, incompetent. Now, this divide between the rural and the urban is nothing new, but with the information age, it is dramatically expanded. As the capabilities of computer programmers increased to affect our world, many in the rural communities decided they didn't want anything to do with it. They didn't trust it. New, scary. Don't know how to see how that's going to, leverage their lives. So they didn't get involved. Now, the information community they didn't get involved by and large in heavy equipment, in farming, in cattle ranching, mining, these kinds of functions, oil and gas production, except in investments and things. But they tend to rail against these things without truly understanding them. But they've got the bulk of the money in the world at the moment. So when we need something that needs to be done, that can't be done with a computer, has to be done with heavy equipment, guess what happens when the information community is approached with these ideas? They say, prove it's possible. Who's going to pay for it? Questions like these. Because they know they're the ones with the money, so they'd have to pay for it. And they don't know how it's done, so they don't think it's possible. And the rural community doesn't really trust the computer technology community and doesn't understand it, not very well. So when we want to do something like space, when we want to go to Mars, we see very amateur kinds of plans. We see top of the list of quality of production. You look at SpaceX, their space infrastructure systems from Earth to orbit, top notch. Their concept of what to do once they've got Mars doesn't look very good. They're just not realistic about big physical, real world stuff. They can contract people and they can hire college graduates to build rocket engines and solve those engineering problems. And yet, a lot of that community is still telling us not to have babies. And that tells me they just don't get it. Not really very well. So, do we send a bunch of people to Mars that only represent half of the conceptual knowledge of Earth or less? Do we try and hire people to go, not fully prepared and with proprietary equipment, computer systems they can't fix themselves? Or does the computer technology community support the right to repair and build open source systems for tractors, combines, bulldozers, and all those kinds of equipment? Because we're going to need a lot of testing phase. And we have to redesign that equipment anyway for those environments of the Moon and Mars. Because a diesel tractor motor is not going to work on the Moon. It's not going to work on Mars. Now, it's vaguely possible that we could produce internal combustion engine type fuels in space. That's actually possible. You could use corn. You could use hydrogen. You could use a hybrid of different things. That still means you'd have to produce a whole bunch of oxygen to run that engine. And then where are you going to spew it? Just out? Just lose it? So, the future needs a lot of engineering work. Most of it's, if it's not off the shelf, it's well within the conceptual range. We don't really have to develop whole new technologies. We just need to redevelop the technologies we have and let the new developments catch up to us. Faster than light travel is not going to come when it's convenient to us. It's going to come when somebody has the inspiration to understand how to solve the problem. And that's only going to happen when we open the purse strings and let the projects get done that need to get done. And it's only going to happen when we learn to trust each other. When we put children into industrial arts classes, and we put those same children into computer programming classes, and we teach our children to be self-sufficient, self-reliant, tough, not pushovers, and not people that hide behind a avatar, but people who can stand up for themselves up front, in person, and in public. We should be telling ourselves, go forth, multiply, and take the solar system, and command it responsibly. And though he didn't sponsor this show, I would like you to take a look at Tony's music and pass this guy some love.